Hello and welcome everyone to the 8-2 Goddess of the Salt Sea update show. I'm Titan Isaiah,
Exactly.
your host for today.
Welcome.
It's been a minute since we've done one of these live, so I'm super excited. We've got an absolute banger of a show today.
Let me go on headphones.
The first round of balance for Season 8, a bunch of awesome skins, and the reveal of the first god of Season 8, Tiamat. I am super excited to go through everything. And of course, I've got Ajax and Pon from the design team here with me. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Things are going really well. Season 8's been awesome. Just doing really good.
There's been so much feedback and data to look at with this season. It's so many excited changes with all the brand new map, all the starters. It's been a really exciting launch. We've been busy. We've been busy.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
Most definitely. Well, I know we've got a lot to go over, and like you were saying, AJ, lots of data, lots of feedback coming in. So Season 8 is live. Talk to me a little bit about what we're seeing on our end and kind of the strategy for this first round of big balance going into Season 8.
This is a really interesting time of the year, right? This is the first major update after our new season. There's somehow everything sounds OP, and then also nothing sounds OP, depending on who you talk to and what role you're in and what type of god you're playing. One thing we've just noticed is that the feedback is all over the place. We see a lot of people trying strategies that are completely opposite of each other and still doing really well, right? We've got a lot of conflicting information going on out there. So wanted to preface today's update with the kind of the idea that we're trying to be careful. We don't want to go nerfing things into the ground right off the bat. We do have a whole lot of nerfs, a whole lot of buffs.
Yep.
Really what we're planning on first is in the 8-1 bonus, which players will be receiving soon, we're doing a lot of shifts across all the starter items. With our primary goal of kind of making each class feel like there are multiple options in the starter items, all feel like viable options, and that one is not clearly dominating. Pon could probably have a little bit more to add on the general practice here before we go into.
We're doing this differently.
Yeah, I think the big thing to note here is we're looking at things that, if there are things that have general consensus around them, maybe being a bit more severe with our nerf or buff than other items that we're still a little bit unsure of. And also generally just kind of tempering what we change here, because things are still rapidly moving around. We see a lot of different strategies still in play. So what is actually the best isn't necessarily super well defined. So a lot of the changes might be a little bit smaller than you might be expecting in some cases. That's just mostly because we want to make sure that people have time to actually mess around with the strategies and really prove out that they are the most effective strategies before just immediately nerfing.
Awesome. So, yep, taking a look at starter items for this bonus balance. We introduced a lot of them. So let's go ahead and get right into bonus balance. That's going to be going live next week on February 9th to you all. And we're going to kick it off with Conduit Gem. This is the kind of go-to mage starter item, has been the general consensus amongst the community. So Conduit Gem is going to be seeing a nerf, going to be decreasing the MP5 and also decreasing the magical power on it.
Huh?
Oh, it looks like that's listing the Archmage's Gem nerf. Spoilers.
I was going to say, this is confusing.
Pon, why don't I'll take the set of these mage, and then you can take the next set, because they're kind of these balance changes are coming in packages. So first we're looking at mage starters, specifically the Conduit Gem starter, which, sorry for the typo here at the bottom, but what you're going to be seeing is on this starter item, you're going to see 5 less MP5 and 5 less magical power. Just nudging that one down to try to make it a more attractive option between Sands of Time and the other mage options. Right now, Conduit Gem is kind of a clear performer, so we're taking that one down. We're also nerfing the Archmage's Gem, which is the 2.5% scaling per stack down to 2% scaling per stack. So that's going to significantly lower the amount of additional burst damage that a few mages are using very effectively. Nuwa, Scylla. We know a lot of mages are using this really effectively, so instead of nerfing those gods directly, what we're doing here is instead nerfing the Conduit Gem as well as the Archmage's Gem. That is going to be combined with the third change, Pendulum of the Ages, which is an upgrade from the Sands of Time line. That's going to be getting up to 20% cooldown. That is a big change, right?
Oh no, that's awkward.
Cooldown is a huge deal to be able to get on a single item. We were initially concerned that you might have issues with properly capping your cooldown with a item that was level locked and also have 20%, but we saw a lot of mages that were just interested in this option and said that this would be a better way to make this extended to the late game. We're also increasing some of the magic power that you're able to get from your mana, which is so just more power and more cooldown to help it compete with Archmages and Conduit Gem.
All right, so that's kind of your mage starter.
I think you
item
need something
package
else.
Here, let's move on to some of the jungle/solo items, and we've got Manikin Scepter back with a vengeance in this update. It's been everyone's favorite new starter item, so we're going to be seeing a nerf to Manikin Scepter both in bonus and in the main
That's not going to change
update
anything.
when 8.2
Yeah.
launches, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But for this bonus balance round, we're going to be decreasing the protections, the bonus damage on Manikin Scepter, but increasing the bonus damage in the jungle.
Yeah, so really, I think the thing that we've seen in solo lane is that at the very top end, Warrior's Axe has been actually the dominant performer. We've seen a lot of top end warrior players really feel like this is really strong. And the direct competition to that is Manikin Scepter, with Bluestone kind of being pushed towards the less used item. It's still quite potent, but it's not competing at the very top level with the Warrior's Axe and the Manikin Scepter. So this patch, we're largely trying to give Bluestone a little bit of an extra option, as well as decrease Manikin Scepter and Warrior's Axe to bring them all closer together. So this one, Manikin Scepter, obviously super high bully item, not just in solo lane, but also in the duo lane. Hunters are building this as well. So taking some of the physical protection off, some of the bonus damage, but then boosting the jungle damage just so that junglers can still utilize it for their clear speed.
Nerfing it is good.
Hopefully
I
take
think
the edge
the way
off
they're
that
doing
for
it
the
is
solo
not
lane matchup. We did
ideal.
see very quickly that this item kind of exploded in popularity as we kind of rounded out our bonus balance. So we have one more nerf coming in the actual 8.2 patch, which will be a reduction to its attack speed. So it is getting one more nerf on top of this that won't be there immediately, but it will be coming, just because we felt like after it exploded so much, it probably did need additional nerfs from what we originally had here.
It's the new hotness, man.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, so we're going to be seeing a little bit of a decrease in Manikin Scepter, but some changes to Bluestone to kind of bring it up. So Bluestone Brooch is actually going to be providing 200 health in bonus balance.
Yep, so this is the upgrade to Bluestone, and really Bluestone itself competes pretty well in lane.
Makes sense.
But it didn't really have a solid upgrade option for a tanky
Makes
bruiser
sense.
who just wanted to stay tanky bruiser. So this is that choice. You can either go the super offensive corrupted Bluestone, or you can go Bluestone Brooch, which will give you that 200 health to just kind of be the front line for your team.
We've also seen people leveraging that attack speed debuff on Bluestone's upgrade as well as an interesting way, but it doesn't quite give you the tanky stats, so we wanted to go ahead and put that here clearly on the Brooch.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Definitely. And then last up for solo, an item that I think is kind of sleeper. I haven't seen a whole lot of talking about it compared to things like Manikin Scepter, but Warrior's Axe, surprisingly good item, and it's going to be seeing a little bit of a shift in the bonus balance. So it's no longer going to provide the 2 flat damage reduction, but we're going to be increasing the health from 50 to 75.
That's a huge nerf.
Yeah, so this, the flat damage reduction specifically on this item, let it trade especially well with its direct competition, Bluestone Brooch or Bluestone Pendant and Manikin Scepter. So reducing that will just make it so that trades are a bit more consistent among the group, as well as the increased health just to kind of offset that nerf. You have a little bit more health to play with in the early game, a little bit of extra wiggle room with your health to kind of play with. So a shift, largely a nerf in the kind of direct competition you're going to expect in the solo lane.
That's a nerf.
Right, and in line with this kind of damage, this flat damage reduction, we're going to be seeing a similar change to Sundering Axe, which is the upgrade from Warrior's Axe, seeing a 5 flat damage reduction to the item.
Yeah, this is partially a consistency change where upgrades generally don't have different stats. Obviously, the starters with all their various rules kind of break that.
Why?
This felt a place where we could be consistent, as well as it just kind of didn't make sense for this item to have that 5.
Like, it's strong for sure, but that's a heavy nerf.
And although you might have not seen this item a lot in your games, we have seen it pretty overwhelmingly at high-ranking games.
Yeah. It's definitely
pretty
value
consistent pro feedback from many pro solo laners and guardians saying that Warrior's Axe was by far the safest and most consistent starter.
That is true, but like the 2 flat reduction gone.
Some fun stuff, but pretty overwhelming feedback that one was just the best and the safest. So that these little shifts might take you a bit by surprise. They are shifts, which, as you see, normally we just do strictly meta nerfs and bonus balance, but across this patch, you're noticing a lot of buffs and nerfs, and even shifts on the same item to really just try to fine-tune these starter items to be a little bit more close to each other. And we heavily suspected that with the nerfs we were planning to mannequin, that Warrior's Axe would have just become the go-to. Everyone
this buffs mannequins.
And solo laners, they already went through seasons where they only had one option. We want to give more options. So this nerf should open up a lot more options in the solo.
Mannequins is smaller than this nerf.
Which buffs mannequin Guardians of Vamp Shroud. We've seen assassins with bruiser builds. We've seen some really cool stuff, and we want to make sure we continue to facilitate that flexible play style.
Right, and speaking of more options, we got another one that's kind of towards the solo lane. I've seen a few little experimentations with Warding Sigil in the solo lane. We're going to be making a buff to this item.
Yes!
It's now going to provide 10 physical protections, but we're decreasing health from 100 to 75.
Yeah, we're talking about Mannequins, Warrior's Axe, and Bluestone, and that is technically not the 3 warrior starter items. That's 1 assassin and 2 warriors. This is the other warrior starter item that largely was just too narrow in its focus of being anti-magical. So we're going to give it a little bit more rounded defense. It's still very good against magical. It's better against magical than physical, but it's not going to be completely useless against a physical god, as well as those physical minions that are going to be hitting you in the early late.
It needs some sustain. A little bit of HP 5.
Sigil seeing a buff, and also seeing a buff to both of its upgrades. Infused Sigil, we're going to be buffing that, decreasing the stat count to detonate, and then also increasing the detonate damage by 100 magical power.
Yeah, so this was the whole tree, both the start as well as some of the upgrades just felt underwhelming. Infused Sigil is this very offensive choice, but you couldn't really play with it too much. We want to make that explosion more frequent and more damaging, so you do feel it when it happens, and you can kind of play towards that strength. And the next one, Sigil the Old Guard, it's going to be getting some physical protections as well.
It needs CC or something else.
Its tier 1 counterpart, just so that it has more well-rounded defenses, so you're not going into the late game with only magical defense.
Yep, Sigil of the Old Guard just now going to provide 30 physical protections going forward here. So that wraps it up for that whole tree. And, and for solo as well. So let's move from the right side of the map and start talking about the left side.
I like the Sigil buffs a lot.
Let's talk about Benevolence. So your support starter item here. It's going to be seeing a buff, and we're just decreasing the cost.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we've seen the Sentinel starter kind of take over the duo lane pretty clearly. Now we've seen a lot of interesting starts there too. We've seen some people trying to use mannequins and support as well as War Flag, but we definitely felt like those were undervalued and undertuned compared to the Sentinel starter. So what you're going to see is a decrease to cost to Benevolence, which we really think this item has a lot of potential. One, because its upgrades are good, and we're going to be getting to some buffs here soon, and because the ability to kind of level spike someone is really strong, although it could be difficult to apply. But we're just bringing the cost down here to let those Guardians better build into, Hand of the Gods if they need that, or more potions, or be a little bit more flexible with their starting build.
Good.
And we're going to be making a similar change to War Flag whenever that comes up.
Yep, War Flag is actually next, so decreasing the cost. We can just kind of talk in line with that. AJ, you're predicting the future. I like it.
Yeah, so we've seen people. I've been watching. Are experimenting with this in support. You can get some really cool aggressive starts with this, especially when you stack up something like Talisman of Energy as the game goes on. Really be a very strong aura source for your team. Although these don't technically count as auras because they're actually triggered AOE buffs with a duration. They're not persistently on. But you can get that kind of buff ball strategy going where you can be a really, really strong buffer for your team. We think this has some pretty good stats. We're just bringing the cost down similarly to Benevolence, again, to help even it up with the other options.
Okay.
All right, and you kind of touched on it a little bit towards the top of the support discussion, but next up is Sentinel's Embrace, which has kind of been the overall consensus that this is the best kind of upgraded support starter item. So
unsurprisingly,
nerf here and bonus. We're going to be decreasing both protection shared between allies and on the passive.
Yeah, so what you'll see here is actually we buffed the other starters. In some roles we're nerfing and buffing the starters, adjusting them, but for this case we're buffing War Flag and Benevolence, just getting straight buffed, while the Sentinel starter is going to remain the same. But then we're nerfing this upgraded Sentinels, which this one seems to be the very specific go-to, and we've seen a lot of people talking about how tanky people can get, especially in the late game. So there's always, a lot of discussion about how tanky or how bursty is a meta at the very beginning of the year. People tend to play a lot more aggressive and a lot more experimentally, so that is a lot of times what you're feeling more so than the true itemization. But we've seen here with this item that this can make a team really tanky, especially in the late game. So we're just tuning this down a little bit to make the other options.
Especially if it's just one player or something.
All right, so we've still got a couple more support starter items and upgrades to talk about here. Next up is Compassion. Going to be seeing a buff here. Compassion is now going to provide 40 magical protections.
And this is pretty much a way to help it compete with Sentinel's Embrace. But if you want the benevolent start with the more interesting XP, this is a way you can kind of round that out.
To see the stats as a whole to know if that's... It's a big buff, obviously.
The magical protection will help it specifically because the damage redirected to you is magical damage.
Mm-hmm.
So this will help you reduce that compassionate damage taking you're doing.
That is actually huge.
All right, next up in the same tree, everyone's kind of fun new troll kind of starter upgrade that's been going over on social media.
We know what's going to happen now.
Animosity. Going to be seeing a nerf here. It is no longer going to deal bonus
damage. I knew that was going to happen.
Structures. Talk to me about animosity, and because I know it's been just a talk in the community ever since season.
So there's a lot of different points here that me and Pon can touch on. Specifically, one point we want to make is that we think that skipping a starter item to try to build sort of an off-roll one in the late game, we think that's a pretty fair trade-off. Meaning that what we think is skipping a starter item is hurting your early game quite a lot. So sure, maybe you could be really strong with animosity in the late game, but you're hurting your early game a lot to be able to do that.
True.
And we're generally keeping an eye on this. We do think it kind of breaks the spirit of the design a little bit, but we'd like to have players have more flexibility as long as the trade-offs feel fair. We don't want people being able to skip starters and feel like, oh, I'm super powerful the whole game, and then when I finish animosity, I'm unkillable. The next thing about animosity is that we found that this is a bit of a meme build. Like, I know some people are putting up good numbers with it, but we've been running the stats on it very closely, and it's not winning that many games, especially when people are building it on like Zhonghui and, weird people, weird gods trying to really use the effect to its maximum. Like, sure, that's interesting, but it's not particularly strong.
Yeah,
it generally just does the best on true aggressive supports, like Ymir, Terra, a few like that. That's where it's really doing the best. And those gods are possibly buying benevolence as a starter item anyway, right? So what we chose to do here, which maybe Pon could explain a little bit more, is just touch the structure damage, specifically because that's an even higher level of frustration and cheese that we wanted to just be careful with.
Yeah, a lot of the complaints we were seeing really were it felt like you couldn't really protect your tower against this. They could come in and like just really kill your structure, especially the double hit characters, the Zhonghui and the Erlang Shen. And even though we saw that strategy not actually put up great numbers, it's not necessarily the most fun to play against, even if it isn't a winning strategy. So removing this not only focuses the item more towards those aggressive supports, which was their intended goal, but also reduces the frustration case of players utilizing it too effectively. The Ymir's, which I think Ymir is actually one of the most winning characters with this item in general.
I think he was the most winning.
Yeah, he shouldn't feel this that much, whereas the characters where this was being utilized in a frustrating manner, the Zhonghui split push, they're going to feel this a lot more.
So one last thing to say is, no one is impressed by you soloing Fire Giant for 2 whole minutes, just standing there. If the other team is not checking Fire Giant for 2 whole minutes, then you deserve that Fire Giant. We don't care how many people it took to kill it. We're not super concerned about that. But we don't like the split push. We don't like Phoenixes or Towers going down fast, because those are squishier than Fire Giant in many cases. So we feel like this is the safest change to make. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. And, we're sure people are going to keep memeing on it, and we want to keep that dream alive, but we don't want to just kill it outright.
I think it's going to be fine now, honestly. I think it's got to be balanced.
Right, we've got one more kind of starter item / starter item upgrade to talk about in bonus balance. Death's Temper. Going to be seeing a buff here. And we're going to be increasing the range at which you can gain stats on enemies.
Yeah, so this is a good segue for 2 things. One
Flair
is
did this.
Death's Temper just felt like this range was so short, you'd kill something and it wouldn't actually get any stacks from it. That is something that should now just feel more consistent with other items that actually result in that. But the second big thing here is that a lot of the item effects that have range-specific activations, their text will now be updated to describe that. So you don't have to guess now if I need to be in like 40 units or 50 units. That'll just be on the item where it's applicable. So you'll be able to see that as well.
Much better this way.
This also has a bug fix coming as well, which will be stated later. But yeah, cool. This was the only hunter buff we had.
Much
and last
better.
up, we're for items in bonus balance. Ratatouille going to be seeing a nerf. Mages are doing a lot of damage. This is a really popular item amongst them.
You guys ruined it by buying it too
power
much.
From 160 to 140.
Yeah, we're seeing right now just a very large power spike in mages, specifically in the mid game when they get a few of these items online. So we're bringing that down to kind of touch mages as a whole. There's other classes have been nerfed as a whole. Ones are using mannequins right now, so all of those getting nerfed. So we think this is a pretty good balance amongst the roles. We know there's some specific gods that people think stand out, but we just chose to kind of address it through Rod of Tahuti, Archmage's Gem, and Conduit Gem instead. This was one of the clearest top performers outside of the starter items, and that's why we chose to do it here in the bonus balance. We think
everyone rushed it after
change
boots
for the short term as we continue to collect a lot more data for the future.
All right, well, that wraps it up for items, but we do have a couple gods to talk about in bonus balance.
Good
First
stuff
up,
so far.
we're going to talk about Set. Set going to be seeing a nerf here. Going to be decreasing the base damage on Skewer and decreasing the base healing on Kingslayer. Pawn, I'll let you take this one and talk to me about Set.
Yeah, so gods for bonus balance this time around are really the top performers from last season that are still top performing, that we expect to remain top performing.
No Bombas nerfs.
And weren't largely affected by the healing changes that occurred. And
Set won't care
meets
then.
all those categories. So Set was just this strong character. Itemization helped him out. He was very highly contested. And he just bullies people. You can see him as a top ban and ranked as well. So we're focused really on reducing some of the base damage that he gets for building that kind of bruiser role, especially that level 5 to 10 where he's gotten his skewer fully ranked up and he can dive you. That is going to be less lethal with the base damage reduction as well as the Kingslayer flat damage reduction.
All right, and then last up for bonus balance, we've got Cupid going to be seeing a nerf. We're going to be decreasing the scaling on Heart Bomb and increasing the cooldown on Fields of Love, the ultimate.
All right, fair enough.
You know, this little guy has been a beast since the buffs early last season. We've seen him just continue to be a top contested pick. We did do a slight touch nerf to him not that long ago. We didn't see him react to it very heavily, so we are bringing it down a little bit. We all enjoyed, at least on the dev team, we really enjoyed seeing Cupid being a top pick in the SPL, which it hasn't been the case for years. But he started to just be so high in the pick ban contesting. So coming down a little bit, hopefully we still see him considered as a viable pick in the SPL, because I think he's just really fun and interesting to watch, but had to even him up with some of the other hunters out there.
All right, well, that wraps it up for bonus balance. That's coming out next week to you guys. But alongside all this balance, we've got an awesome amount of skins. We've got a few skins that are coming up next week, too. So definitely want to talk about, we'll kick things off with Dawn of Babylon, the new event, and one that ever since he got released, we've seen players ask about this one. We've got Home Run Heimdall, as in the Dawn of Babylon event. Your baseball skin, and this is kind of the wide splash art, but I think we have another version that's going to be the actual card that you see on the loading screen. And
oh my god!
There you go.
We've done some
Made
extra
me realize I
treatment
didn't even
to make
do
it
a
feel like a
skin
real
data mining
baseball
video.
card. This one's looking super
Too much
sick.
going on at the moment,
Definitely
guys.
a PSA 10.
Sorry about that.
In my opinion, I don't know about you guys.
Mint condition.
Well, this one was
I
already
know,
in game
right?
anyway, so you on PTS.
Oh my gosh. I remember when we first pitched Heimdall Ultimate, the immediate first thought was, we have to do a baseball skin at some point, right? Like, we just have to. He has to home run bat someone off into space.
Most definitely. I'm loving the details in the outfit and the hat and stuff, and we've got the turnaround here. The Asgard, I love the purples and golds too, and he's got that bat and the socks. I'm sure AJ will appreciate those.
I wish I could show. I'm wearing lightning bolt socks. I got brand new ones for Christmas, but you can't see them because of this camera angle instead of the wider set. I miss it. But of course, I'm really stoked about this one. You know, we've done some more modern sports skins like Dunkfather Odin, so we've had some practice on making our characters feel really interesting in this regard. And this character, I know this one's all about the satisfaction of using the abilities, right? When you're gonna get in game and you're gonna Heimdall ult and charge at someone and just hear that home run bat crack, that is what playing this game is gonna be all about. And trust me when I say that it is it's very satisfying to play.
Definitely. My man is tatted up too. I'm loving it. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack for Home Run Heimdall.
Cue that walk-up song, baby.
He's definitely ready to knock it out of the park. But we got another one from Dawn of Babylon, and this one is going to be super exciting for a couple of community members that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We've got Book of Nightmares Thoth, the first Thoth skin in a long time here, and this one is looking
Yeah, that was already on
super
PTS as well.
spooky, and this one is super creepy. AJ, what's going on with this one?
So, you know, I did write a section on the patch notes for 8.1 specifically mentioning that we're going to be doing our best to revisit skins for a bunch of gods who normally don't get skins. This is one of those ones that was on that list, Thoth, finally getting one. And what we're trying to go for here is a really unique take on sort of a demon eldritch theme. Thoth is defined kind of by his book, and, you know, so is a lot of, you know, Lovecraftian and other similar lore like that. It's a common theme in those types of fantasy to have these books that reveal, you know, terrifying secrets and powers with dark sides to them, and that's what you're going to see here with this Thoth skin.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this one looks in game as we prep the turnaround here. The details in the clothing and the cloth armor are sick, and that book is definitely demonic in my opinion.
Oh my gosh.
Also makes him not a bird, which is cool.
Oh, I didn't
I like the
even
cut
look
out a
at
bit better than the skin in this
his
one.
beak and his face have been changed,
It's a
so
bit
that's
too,
a really big change. That's really nice. And
Light.
that gets a big
Around.
theming change to it too. And we've been really just trying to make sure we push ourselves to make anything that's demonic feel a little bit unique, add a little bit more flavor to it too. So we've got a lot more experimental with our kind of colors and styles to just branch out from things beyond just fire and brimstone.
Yeah, this one's looking great. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack for this one.
Even the darkest of secrets are the path to power.
I'm loving the voice pack. It fits his personality and this new kind of evil take for Thoth perfectly, in my opinion. So this is kind of demonic, but it's got some fantasy vibes. But the next one we've got up, it leans all the way into high fantasy. We've got Dragon's Dagger Pele, and this is probably my favorite card art of the entire update. I love just the glowing elements and the dragons
Pele has a
and
lot of
all
skins.
the elf and fantasy vibes. What do you think, Pon?
Oh my gosh, when a dragons have bestowed power on your weapons, you know they're going to do some cool stuff. That's such a cool theme for the artwork.
This is almost a completely new theme, I guess I would say. This was a result of some more experimenting on the art side within the
weapons look cool, but the design
and things you might be familiar with from MMOs and other types of fantasy games. So
I don't know.
This is kind of the first along this line. So if you really like it, let us know. Show your love, and we'll keep this in mind for skins going forward.
I like
I've got a note here that the concept for this one was
the
actually
theme,
by
the
Sam
concept,
Hogg,
but
who's actually done some work for the official Song of Fire and Ice calendar, Game of Thrones. This one is definitely
that's
looking
really
super
cool.
sick.
maybe
So
it's the
let's go ahead and
colors
take a
that just
listen to
don't
the
work
voice
out for
pack
me.
this one.
Or the
With
face.
this
Something throws
power
me off about this
invested in
one.
me, I shall bring our enemies to their knees.
I love it. Just something about the rhyming cantation. It's got the fantasy vibes all the way. But let's move away from fantasy. We've got the dystopian chest coming out next week, and we've got modern android Achilles making his debut on the battleground as a part of that chest. So we're going from fantasy, full sci-fi. What do you think about this one?
Another kind of new theme for us, right? Another kind of trying to explore a different type of sci-fi with a little bit more of a gritty, realistic feel to it, almost like if this android could be built within a few years or decades from here. Also, just he's styling, which is just really cool.
Yeah.
Like have a robot character with some cool clothes. We were really excited to do that. And of course, it is Achilles though, so if you want to go ahead and take that jacket off and go full bare-chested death machine,
The
you certainly
classic
can do that too.
hoodie and hat.
Yeah, I'm loving all the little
Of my youth.
all
Let's
the
go.
extra little pieces of his
This is-
armor
this is-
and highlighting
this is the
and even
skin.
the paint on the shield.
Fellas.
So cool.
Yeah.
2008
this one's
is
looking
calling.
sick. I bet he sounds sick as well. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack.
Especially with
You're
the
gonna
fur.
bring this one. Trust me, I'm from the future.
Oh, you love
you
to
go.
see it. This one is sick. He's from the future. He knows he's already got it in the bag. Well, that wraps it up for everything that is coming out in the 8.1 bonus update next
I can
week.
move now.
Coming to you guys, I believe the date is February 9th. Don't hold me to it. Patch notes are live on the site if you want all the details. But we've got a lot of community news that we actually want to talk about as well.
The patch notes
First
we'll
up,
talk
we've got
about
a lot
tomorrow.
of in-game stuff that you guys can get, earn stuff for free just by playing.
Later today.
The entire
Yeah.
month this month of Black History Month, we're super excited to celebrate, and you all will be able to earn the Equality Avatar just by winning a game all month of February, which is super awesome. We've also got 2 times everything. We extended that
Avatar's
event
so
that is going
well
to
designed as well, by the
Thursday.
way.
So if you're trying to
Really
rack
like
up
it.
some diamonds here in the first couple weeks of Season 8, definitely start playing some games. And then last but not least, over the weekend, if you want to get a little bit cute, you can get a cutesy avatar chest for getting 3 first wins of the day in game. So lots of awesome stuff going on.
Oh, so
and
he
then
only
I've
has 2
also got to
modes.
plug for fans by fans. We've got the Fan Forge contest going on for all your artists. If you want to see your design on some official Smite merch, go ahead and go to forfansbyfans.com and get your submissions in. The world champion Pittsburgh Knights are going to be going through all the submissions and choosing finalists. And for the winner, you'll be able to get your own custom in-game avatar in the Smite that you designed, which is super awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Next up, for all of you guys that are watching on Twitch, if you've got your Prime Gaming subscription up and running, you can get Fiendish Rage Cucullin for free. Just click that crown at the top right of your screen there to claim your free skin reward as a part of Prime Gaming. We've got a different skin that comes out every month, and it's been super awesome to catch up on some of that stuff that you may have missed. And then last but not least, my big announcement for community in this patch, in this update show. We ran the Olympians election, and I'm super excited to announce and welcome our 2021 Olympians Player Council. We've got Alpha Jackal, Whiskey Worm, Savisaur, Tempest in a Teacup, Black Eye, Davion 505, Kerr McHale, Sinister Phoenix, and Cher. We've got an awesome group that are rounding out this year's council, and we've actually started working with them a little bit earlier, and they've already been putting in a ton of work. AJ has been talking with them almost every day. Lots of awesome feedback and thoughts on Season 8 so far, and we are super excited to work with them
Good
this
lineup.
year. So congratulations
like
to
one or
all
two
of
people
those, to the Olympians for Season 8.
not
We're looking
so
forward
good,
to
but
working with you this year.
everyone else very good.
Love the Olympians program. It's been so
Most
helpful
definitely.
to us. Yeah,
It's been super awesome. All
We've
right,
been
well, let's
busy
go
with
ahead and talk
the
about
new council
I
already.
know, lots and lots of stuff going on. Let's move on and start talking about 8.2 and some of the proper balance that's going to be coming out live when 8.2 launches later on in February, around the 23rd. And we'll kick it off with game modes, and we've got a lot to talk about, mostly conquest focused, if not all conquest focused for game modes here. But for the first one, let's talk about the enhanced speed buff. I know a lot of junglers weren't really too happy about some of that bonuses that they were getting on the enhanced speed buff after killing the Scorpion. So we're making some changes. Going to be removing the crowd control reduction on the enhanced speed buff, and it's now going to provide an additional flat 5% movement speed.
Movement speed is strong,
Hey!
right?
That's all junglers want. Doesn't matter if there's a team fight at Fire Giant, Gold Fury. I want to go fast.
Yes.
Junglers only want one thing, and it's disgusting. It's movement speed. And we've had to remove the movement speed. We've had to be careful with amount of movement speed. We did want to be a little careful, but then we saw the feedback that they felt like this buff was just clearly undervalued compared to the other enhanced buffs. All the other ones I think feel really cool and really interesting. We want those Scorpions. They're a new objective. We want those to be a part of the game. We want those to be something you're considering at any time in the game. So we think with your jungler being a little bit more invested on that, that's going to really help the team play of the whole map too. Yes, because your jungler is going to want this, and they're also going to want to.
They always cleared that because of blue buff,
jungler, right? Mm-hmm. So this should
blue buff
create
is so
some
strong.
Even more interesting strategy on an already exciting new map.
Definitely. All right, next up, let's talk about Invaders.
By the way, this is just a return stat, basically.
We're going to be just adjusting the area in general here, but also one thing that I've seen community talk about is just how long it lasts. So we're actually going to be decreasing the time that it's active down from a minute to 35 seconds.
Yeah, we talked with the pros on this one specifically, and we also just stood our ground a little bit here. We don't want to encourage super early invades. We don't want matches being decided by 2v2s at level 1. We've designed the map in many ways so that it's a little bit easier to protect yourself, but we want to keep this additional safety feature. So currently we had it really localized around buff areas, so if you really tested the bounds of the Invaders Curse, you could kind of weasel your way into the enemy jungle like pretty far without getting it applied to you. Now it's going to be a little bit more consistently applied when you really go into the enemy side jungle. And we also just decrease the time. We just want to protect you at the very beginning of the game. The very beginning. Once you start going to laning and start fighting and start looking to invade and cause through laden pressure, we don't want this to be a factor anymore. So we're cutting this down by almost 30 whole seconds, which should be a nice, like, safe start, but still opening up a lot of pressure strategies.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Lesser Scorpion up next. Making some changes here, mostly to the healing aura and how the system and the mechanic kind of works. So it's no longer going to provide the aura when the Scorpion is in its down state, and it's got those 3 little pips that you have to hit with basic attacks. It is now going to grant the healing aura to the team that actually gets the last hit. Correct me if I'm wrong, AJ.
Oh,
you're right. You're still gonna have to down it. You're still gonna have to kill it once it's downed. But instead of us splitting the reward, we did see a few players. A shout out to some of our ADC streamers. I've seen them when you get some pressure, they kill the Scorpion, but they don't finish it. They leave it at 1 health. And they sit in the area.
Yeah.
It was just a bit too narrow. We were really only seeing people utilizing it when they had really safe lane pressure where they could really body out their opponent. we want it to be a little bit more contested and just a little bit more clear in the way it behaves. So now, whoever kills the Scorpion after it's been down to the true last hit, that team is going to get the XP gold as well as access to the healing area.
Oh, it's just like everything else. It's boring.
All right, and then just a couple of notes on just like the map and environment and kind of gameplay. Super excited to announce that we're going to be adding the spectator version of the Conquest map in 8.2. So everybody that's running your community tournaments, you'll be able to get a cleaner version that's got some less height on some of the walls as you're spectating your games, which is super exciting.
Nice.
And then also to the gameplay version of the map, we're just making various environment changes towards the scale, specifically around the fire giant pit, lowering that big wall to kind of prevent some clipping for people with global ultimates, making some similar changes to the order side base archers as well.
Yeah, the key thing to say on this is, one, the fire giant, just the scale there felt off. Everyone was saying the fire giant felt tiny. He's like, 4 or 5 times taller than a god, so he's big still. So we just adjusting that wall to not have that weird optical illusion. It also it's extended way into the flight zone for many gods, right? So we took those trees down a little bit, not a lot. And we've seen a lot of discussion out there. So Pon and I just wanted to call this out too. A lot of discussion about people wanting us to like remove trees or hide trees. But we want to just go ahead and say that right now, the design team is pretty happy with the way that the visibility interacts with global ultimates. You have to have some vision of someone. You have to have some teammates in order to really get those more clear dunks. And we think this is a fun and, like, honestly, a way to balance those characters in some ways too. And we plan on keeping it that way. We don't plan on
them as well in some ways,
allowing people to hide trees or look through trees.
Like, because it's harder to see as well.
Global ults are really, really good on this map too.
Yeah.
So this is one way you can kind of counter global ults, and we think it's a pretty fun and interesting way to counter, and it's a fair way to counter. Like, you can tell where people are pathing to, and if it's a good idea. There's a lot of normal type of game decision and game visibility decisions that you would make even when you're not in the air. Same type of process goes here.
All right, that wraps it up for game modes. Let's talk about items. We've got a couple here. First up, Gilded Arrow. Going to be seeing a fix/buff here. This item in 8.2 is no longer going to mark jungle bosses.
Yeah, so a relatively minor change here. This was just it feels weird to then have the reward for lasting on a jungle boss when that's like a team effort to kill, as well as it was just kind of marking things as you're running through the jungle when you get to your camp, and it would have marked the gold fury instead of that purple you want to kill. So it just felt a little bit weird. This just makes the item more consistent. It really just makes sure that you're marking targets that you're likely to get the last hit on that you can control.
It's still intended to mark jungle buffs and jungle camps as well, by the way. That's intended, just not bosses.
Yes.
Good.
That's also as a way to kind of encourage you to go into the jungle and clear things.
All right, and then last up for items, we kind of talked about it earlier, but we just want to quickly recap the Manikin Scepter changes that are coming out in 8.2. It's going to be seeing a fix. We fixed an issue where it was dealing magical damage rather than physical, and we're also decreasing the attack speed slow.
Yep, the fixed damage type it depends on your matchup and what items you start. Could be a little bit more damage or a little bit less damage. It largely is going to be pretty similar to what it was before. And then you add the damage nerf on it, and it's going to be overall reduced. But the other thing was the attack speed slow, especially early on when you have no attack speed built. Characters that have like cleaving chains or characters that rely on their basic attacks a lot for their clear really, really feel the slow at the start of the game. Yeah. So for a tier 1 starter, that's too intensive an effect. We're toning that back so that players can. It's still not beneficial to trade with someone with mannequins, but you're not completely like zoned out of being able to like box at all.
Right.
I dig it.
All right, let's move on to gods.
That part I'm fine with.
And we've got Don DeBurrow up first. Going to be seeing a nerf to Uproarious Raucous. We're going to be decreasing the physical power scaling on the ultimate ability.
Yeah, this guy has calmed down a lot in 8.1 actually.
He has,
because
actually,
there's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Still good,
trying
but
a lot of different things. His stats are looking a lot more reasonable now. He was obviously very strong in 7.12, but he got some pretty reasonable buffs in 8.1, and we're just doing one more little buff, and then little nerf, and we'll be keeping an eye on him after that. So I think this should round him out nicely. I think this god is still really fun, really interesting, and a lot of cool potential on this new map with his ultimate.
Oh, definitely.
People just don't jungle him enough yet. That's the problem.
Definitely looking forward to seeing,
once they do,
just a little bit toned down, just because I know that Rocket was dealing a lot of damage here. And then next up, we got King Arthur seeing a fix, which is going to be a little bit of a nerf as well. We fixed an issue where Arthur could proc item effects with his basic attacks.
Yeah, so this was a fix that Jorm also got where essentially they could trigger off like the tier 1 blessings that existed before, but because all of the starter items are much more like true items in their own right, this is just a consistency pass. His basic attack doesn't trigger item effects. It shouldn't trigger starter item effects as well.
All right, small
So
fix
no
for King
mannequins,
Arthur. Yeah, no mannequins, Arthur. Small fix for
Go
King
back
Arthur.
to Bluestone.
Yep.
Some big buffs for Baba Yaga here. Baba's Brew going to be seeing just a large scale amount of just quality of life
nice.
updates to just some of the timing on her animations from, pulling out the potion, switching, etc. Upon, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Yeah, this is one that I particularly was adamant against for quite some time, because I felt like you needed the time to hear the potion being brewed and thrown and understand that it's going to come at you, and she has potions, so she's pulling out multiple ones. There's a lot of state going on there that is conveyed through the audio and the time that you have to respond to that. But given the power of it and how players have learned Baba Yaga, and overall the clunk that it introduced wasn't really worth the necessarily gameplay feel of playing against Baba Yaga, and with the reduced timing, it does still feel pretty fair to play against these Baba Yaga potions, because you still have to throw it, you still have a warning target on the ground. So this should just make Baba Yaga feel a lot better to play, a lot better and smoother potion management, and enemies can still play around this effect and play against the potions just fine.
Definitely looking forward to seeing the Witch of the Woods.
Animation
slinging some
changes tend to be
potions.
strong buffs. So
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
this is likely very good for her.
These are
Especially if
big
there's so much.
buffs, by the way. They are a quality of life, I guess, but they're big buffs.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Jorman Gunder making some changes to his basic attacks. They will no longer be reduced by items that have flat damage reduction, and then immovable, his passive. We're going to be decreasing the damage taken from debuff from 15% to 10%.
It has been quite a ride for this poor god.
I know.
He was the best god in the game when he was triggering items in a
It's odd because they
useful way,
specifically
and he
removed
was
the flat
terrible,
reduction
and
from
even
Warriors.
last year, up and down. So Jorm has been on quite a ride. We're trying to just get him back in a reasonable spot. Now that we've seen the stats of the new season, he has dropped off quite a bit. We're trying to do a little bit more to push him towards support, which I think the immovable buff will really help, so he can't be so bursted by hitting him with specific types of CC. And then the basic attacks, just with someone who's going to have his basic attacks functioning the way that he does. We knew this was going to come up. If it wasn't a problem right now, it would probably be a problem sometime in the future. So we just wanted to go ahead and make this special rule exception to Jorm to make sure that he is always able to do pretty consistent amount of damage through that, so we can balance that more effectively. So I'd imagine to see him coming back a little bit in the solo and possibly duo lanes in A2.
I mean, the item changes might help as
And
well.
speaking of dual lanes, we got a Hunter that hasn't been seeing, a whole lot of changes here in a while. We've got Carninos making some changes to Shifter of Seasons. Summer Heat, we're going to be increasing the scaling from 5% to 10%. And then Autumn Decay, we're going to be increasing the protection debuff on that one, and also increasing the duration.
Yeah, so Carninos is one of those characters that has some interesting leveling order stuff going on with him, because why the one is such a cool ability, the first rank of it doesn't provide super intense effects, and so in some cases you could justify skipping points entirely. One thing that we wanted to encourage was that you can go this and get an early rank in it and feel good about it, especially if you're good at managing all the seasons and bouncing back and forth between Autumn Decay and Summer Heat to get that extra damage out. Just makes it more rewarding to have that initial point spent in, and gives that duration is going to make it a bit easier to also execute on the Autumn Decay strategy. You can apply it and benefit from it for a longer period of time. Just a nice change to Carninos players to make the one feel easier to use, as well as be better at the rank 1 version of it.
You're definitely going to want to pick up Autumn earlier than you did before.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Correct.
All right, just a couple more gods left.
Very
in balance
interesting.
here. Odin up next. Going to be seeing a change to Ring of Spears. One, we're going to be changing the duration of the ultimate to be 5 seconds at all ranks instead of scaling from 4 to 6. And then also, enemies inside the ring will now have their power reduced by 15%.
Are we going back
So a
to
little bit
no
of a
reason to
shift
level the
buff.
ult, basically?
We're taking that top end duration down a little bit to improve Odin's early game and make the ring a little bit more consistent. But speaking of consistency, this power change, it used to be an attack speed change, right? And we didn't really like that because it was so specific. Like, certain gods didn't care about this at all. Just continue boxing in his ring, which has some weird thematic like implications, like why are magic characters not affected by this? So now that we've seen Odin drop off quite a bit, honestly, He was very strong after the rework. We got a lot of community feedback and data to that he was strong, so we took him down a notch. But now we're looking to bring him back up, and one way we felt that we could do that in a more uniform way would be to have this attack speed debuff of the old days kind of reimagined as now just an actual power, so it affects all gods. In a, it's still not going to affect tanks as much as maybe DPS characters, but lets Odin really have an edge up in the ring against a lot of other types of gods he might be fighting one-on-one with, which is really cool.
And it also doesn't interfere with the counterplay that exists now with actually breaking out of the cage. Attack speed slow would artificially increase the difficulty of breaking out the cage too, which we feel is a pretty good balance spot.
True.
All right.
Not sure if that'll change much for him.
One more for balance here. We've got
Interesting
Isis as our last god, seeing a buff in 8.2. Dispel Magic. We're going to be increasing the slow from 20% at all ranks, and that's going to scale from 20 up to 30%, and then also increasing the shield health on this one.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
Isis
a lot of
is a
extra
pretty
shield.
similar story to Odin in that Isis got some changes to how core abilities worked, and then was really, really good. We nerfed quite a bit, and then we've been slowly bringing her back up. And one thing that we feel like could really put her into a solid spot is Dispel Magic. Some of the nerfs we did removed her survivability and self-peel. We want to bring some of that back. So Dispel Magic, the slow is going to scale up. So that gives, especially late game where it's harder to just sit there and wing gust in people's faces, an extra tool to help enable that, as well as some extra base shield health to also further enable that in the late game.
Specifically, we wanted to call out these are both late game buffs.
Yes, both late game.
Isis already has quite a good early game, but she's dropping off really heavily. We didn't want to over buff her early game because that's where she tends to find her frustration point. Possibly the part of the mistake we made around her reworks. Now we're just going for the scaling, which we think is a lot safer. Hopefully, bring her back into the meta in a more safe way.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. Well, that wraps it up for balance, guys. We did it, but we've also got a lot more that's coming out in 8.2 that we definitely want to talk about. We've got some quality of life stuff that's coming up here, and we want to talk about viewer points and the viewer store. We made an announcement last week about how viewer points are going to be working in Season 8. They're going to be moved to this new system via Twitch drops that you guys can earn right now on the Smite Game channel, but we're also super excited to announce that as of right now, or maybe about an hour ago, you can earn viewer points on any Twitch stream that is playing Smite, which is super awesome. So
nice.
If you want to watch here, if you want to watch, some of your favorite Smite content creators, anywhere on Twitch that has a Smite stream open, you will be able to earn viewer points via Twitch drops. Super exciting. And we've also got the breakdown on how many points you'll be able to earn, where you can earn those points, and all that good stuff in patch notes if you guys want to check that out. But we're also making some pretty significant changes to the viewer store, and I kind of pass it along to AJ because we're going to have skins in the viewer store as well, but we're adding some new stuff in there too.
Yeah, so we're not going to go into all the little details on this right now, but I want to talk about the key improvements to this store. So
I missed Pizza Shibalanke.
First of all, we are keeping the system relatively similar as last year. You can earn points from watching.
Oh, I didn't know yet.
Except you'll now get to get them through the drops. You can buy a pass with a skin that is going to double your viewer points for the rest of the season. We are generally keeping prices the same, but increasing the amount of points you can earn. That's going to be a little bit faster this year, so you'll reach those 75 and 200K thresholds faster. We're also adding a whole bunch of other items at different viewer point tiers. So we're now going to have new non-skin cosmetics as well as rotating old skin cosmetics at different price tiers in the viewer store. So there's always kind of something for you to be looking at, maybe buying if you're not interested in the more expensive items. We're going to have a new stretch reward skin as well as a new buy-in pass skin, and we're going to have new 200K skins, although for the start we're going to keep the two most recent ones and only rotate those out one at a time.
Right.
So a lot of exciting things. I mean, the biggest one being that you can earn these from watching any streamer as long as they enable their drops. And you're going to want to make sure you go ahead and check out that UI in Twitch. You can tap on your profile to look at drops to make sure you're earning progress for your drops. You'll also need to claim your completed points drops in Twitch before you go into game to get them. So that's a really big change, but it's a lot more clear. You should always know if you're earning points or not. The previous system was kind of invisible. We love the visibility here. And last note about this whole section is currently in 8.2, when you get in game, the voting tab and the teams tab are going to be intentionally hidden because we are not going to be revealing SPL teams quite yet.
Not quite ready to show off the rosters, but in due
So
time. I'm sure Avi
those
is
will get
holding
shown
the
off.
key.
More in a few weeks from now, and then we'll go ahead and be including those features, unlocking those features for players to start voting and supporting their teams in 8.3.
Fair enough.
Definitely. Lots of exciting stuff coming to the viewer store. We're actually going to take a little bit of time to show off some of the skins and in our first kind of skin segment for all the stuff that's coming out in 8.2. And then the first skin that we've got up, this is going to be your viewer pass skin for the year. So this is your buy-in
Oh, so they
skin.
didn't
You get
show
double
it.
points for the entire year. Super excited for this one. Voodoo Rock Baron Samdi. And I am loving the vibes and the digs on this
love
one. It kind of in the music theme, but he's not quite heavy metal like we've
I
done
love
in the
it.
past. This is kind of a different take on the rock star, right?
Does he
AJ?
play smooth?
Yeah, we've been getting the requests for a music baron. He just, he has such
looks like he
a
does.
party atmosphere to him that we've been looking into this for a while. This
Yes.
is inspired by a lot of different genres of different types of music, rock and roll. We tried to include a lot of different, kind of different references all combined into one, like God of Rock.
Yeah. This one's awesome. We're actually going to take a look at
This
it
is
in game and show
fantastic.
off some of the abilities really quick. So let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack before we go in game. Oh, never mind. We're in game right now. Let's go ahead and look at what we've got going on here. I'm loving the basics, and Pon's going to go through our
Are those
trusty
speakers?
driver.
Those are definitely speakers.
Oh, yeah, that's sick. And as we're going through the abilities, I definitely want to give a shout out to Noah on the audio team, who had a fun time going through and adding the music elements
hear
to
the
all
sound.
the audio effects here. Definitely brings the entire skin together. I'm loving it.
Oh, and the hysteria, it's the speakers on them playing
Oh,
music.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just like playing in your ear the whole time.
Either it's super quiet or it's not on there.
We got the Cobra. Oh,
Yeah, that's
Nice. You got the
incredible.
dance floor with
And
the
he's-
ultimate.
he's shredding the guitar. He's got
That
some
is
ghost
sick.
ladies hanging out on the side of his speaker.
Now the
too.
party's
That is
really this
amazing.
way.
Oh, that's sick. Oh, man. It's been a while. I think Baron might have been on your list too, AJ. Well, it's been
That is true.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Baron's gotten the skin, so we're hitting a couple guys in this update, which is exciting.
That's great.
Yeah,
So good.
this one came together super well, and I've got the cue. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice back here for Voodoo Rock Baron.
I know this crowd is a fan of the classics, but I've got some surprises up my sleeve too that I know you're just gonna love.
Nice.
Oh, that voice pack
That is
so
so
fitting.
good. Oh my
On
god.
I
point.
love it.
Amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is acted masterfully.
Oh, this is sick. All right, so this is going to be next up in the viewer store, kind of your first store exclusive for 200k points for season 8, Infinite Avatar
I need it.
Vamana. And I believe we had an Infinite skin that was part of the viewer pass last year, so kind of keeping with the tradition here. And I love the card art here, and I just love Infinite skins are like one of my favorite lines. I just love how we've been able to kind of
Why two
expand
heads?
that theme and grow it even further.
What?
This might be another skin for the god on the didn't get a skin in a while list.
Oh, I know. We're,
Um,
we're hitting them.
right off the bat.
Yeah.
We also tried to, again, as we often do, add some more experimentation and changes and subgenres within our theme. So this skin, although it's infinite, it's got a bit of a darker spin to it, and we tried to kind of give that a little bit more of a darker theme across the board.
Yeah, this one's looking great. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack for Infinite Avatar Vamana.
Their lack of control will truly be their downfall.
A little more sinister than some of the other infinite skins.
Yeah, definitely.
I like it, but it's
I
not
like
very
it. I love the
recognizable.
echoing on the voice packs and stuff
That's
as
what
well
I'm-
too. But we've got a nice group of skins that are kind of rounding out the first round in the viewer store. But we've got
It's only
the
really the
stretch
umbrella.
reward that we want to talk about here, and this one's been around in the
Yes.
community for a little
Yes.
bit. Olympians kind of pitched this one last year.
Finally.
got- Chichen Pizza Shiva Lanke as your stretch reward this year. So similar
It's
to Valkyrie
happening.
Bride 4.
Finally. This was a
I
closed beta
know.
idea or something, or season 1.
I
at
was gonna
least.
say this.
So
This
good.
request is so
Oh,
old.
man, I'm loving the card art. You've got
So
the
old.
rats that are kind of chasing because the pizza. Oh man, this one is looking great.
Now, the
Straight
lore
out-
is very important here. He is
Yes,
working
this is
for a
very true.
rival pizza organization that is does not get along and competes with Chef Vulcan's pizzeria. And
I
of course,
love
he's
the animation.
spinning a pizza as his weapon and throws pizzas at people. Because that's the
gosh.
whole.
Yes.
That's the joke.gif. Right.
This
That's
is
it.
amazing. And for those of you that aren't in on the pun, it's Chichen Pizza is a reference to Chichen Itza, which is a great temple in Central America that is very prominent in Mayan lore, which is super awesome.
Nice.
So kind of give you guys a little bit of a history lesson to go along with this long time Smite community meme. Let's take a listen to the voice pack before we go in game and show off some of the effects.
Hey, Vulcan's Pizzeria! You got a new competitor in town!
There we go, staying true to the lore here.
I actually might have to
AJ
play
said,
Shivalanka now.
I'm super excited to see this one in game.
Throwing
And he's
pizzas
just
at people.
Throwing pizzas.
slinging slices. This is amazing.
I did not care for the Thor
We've
skin,
been
but
always
this
trying
one.
to keep an eye out for some of the favorite community meme skins over the years. You know, we finally did Wedding Dress Thor, and now finally Pizza Balanque. And what is it? Breadsticks and garlic knots he throws at
So,
people, I think.
I'm gonna slow-mo this because it's too good not to. He uses a breadstick and shoots out pizza darts.
Oh my god.
It's too good.
Okay, that is actually amazing.
Oh man, this is great.
And of
I
course,
love how you've got like the flashes of all the different like pizza ingredients and toppings as well.
Oh, it doesn't show pizza? What a
I
missed
believe that's
opportunity.
great.
Blinding and sort of fiery, you know.
I thought it was gonna be a pizza just slowly going
Nice,
together.
like they're in a pizza oven.
What? Why does he
A lot of
always
good
show
food
pizza?
references is crossing again.
Yeah,
That needs to be a pizza.
this one is looking great here. This is Chichen Pizza.
Happy with
Shivalanke,
everything
your
else, but that
stretch
all
reward
needs to be
for
a
the
pizza.
season in the viewer store. So as long as you're watching streams on Twitch, any Smite stream, and earning those points, you will be making progress towards the skin, which is super exciting. And that wraps it up for kind of the viewer store / viewer pass section of the skin segment. Let's go ahead and start talking about Dawn of Babylon, which is kind of our big event towards the top of the year. And first up in this event that we want to show off in 8.2 is Arachnoid Arachne. And this one is looking sick. You guys
Wait,
know
what's
I
this already
love
cut off?
all the tech
Hang on.
and all the cyborg / mecha skins. This is great.
Another unique
It
take
has a head.
on
I don't know
mech
why.
type of feel, right? But not really a mech, very, you know, cyborg android instead. Very clean and simple, but also very sinister and scary.
Yeah, this one's great. And I got a note here in the audio. We've got some awesome like servo references and elements that were put into the effects and audio for this skin. But let's go and take a listen to the
I
voice
like
pack
this
for
style.
Arachnoid Arachne.
System is calibrated. Threats identified.
Nice, definitely looking
It's
forward.
like the Idusa
to
skin.
one. This
I really
one
like.
is
joints are
sick.
freaking me out.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Oh my
The way they
goodness.
separate, that's really nicely done by the animation team. There's a lot of detail there.
Yeah, there's tons there.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love the clean, kind of sleek look in this one. Next up in Dawn of Babylon, in this bundle, we've got Wild Style Mulan, and this one has got some kind of anime vibes and some bright colors.
Oh,
I'm
no.
loving the card art here.
Another one of those.
We've been doing this more often, but I love the kind of breaking the third or fourth wall here, and it's like you're looking at a security camera, and Mulan is just kind of tagging it up here. This one's great.
I love all these super bright colors that we've been doing on a lot of these skins. It just looks so good in the game. It like pops a ton.
Nice. I love the white and cyans complemented by the pink.
This looks
too.
better than
The
I
colors are
expected.
Great.
And this skin has a bunch of
weapon.
extra features with the weapons. Yeah, she's got the sword is a pipe.
I actually like
and
it.
I believe her spear is a skateboard. And we even have a half pipe that gets spawned in briefly for the ultimate
Oh my
deployable.
goodness.
She's got
What?
That's
cool
sick.
stuff going on. in
Okay,
this
now I
one,
want to
yeah.
see it.
We really
Nice.
tried to, fill out the whole fantasy of this graffiti punk vibe.
Okay, now
Oh,
it's suddenly
definitely.
cool.
Oh yeah, this makes sense. It's kind of in line with like the past, like the Thor skin that we had. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack for Wild Style Mulan.
Yeah, I break rules. If we follow all the rules, we miss all the fun.
There you go. Definitely loving the personality in this one. And we've got one more skin to show off before we get into Tiamat, and this is probably Tina's favorite skin of the patch. We've got Northern Warder Khepri as a part of the critter chest, and we've transformed the hug bug into a fluffy little Northern Warder, and I love it. I love it. I love it.
What? That is cool.
Well, the idea was, what type of like mystical creature could we make Khepri instead of a bug, right? So we were like starting to imagine something that was mammalian, right? And how could that work? How would that feel? Something that you would see from a lot of different types of fantasy. And it was an interesting challenge, honestly. I'm really happy with how it turned out, though. I think it's super unique, and I think it makes the Khepri skin options feel like they have an even better, wider variety of choices for players.
His face is so cute.
Choking because it's too cool.
I know. Yeah, this one turned out really great. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack for Northern Warder Khepri.
I am as old as the glaciers of the north. Now, they are being threatened.
Nice. I love it. I love like the deep.
Really like that one.
Khepri, you know, he's got the guardian, the support, the protector vibes, and the voice pack definitely echoes those themes. I'm looking forward to seeing that one in game. But it is time. It is time for the reveal of Smite's newest mage, the first god of Season 8. What everybody's been waiting for, I'm sure chat has been spamming. Come on, let's get to it. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we will be revealing Tiamat, goddess of the Salt Sea. We'll be back in just a sec.
So we're just going to see the trailer, yeah. Fair enough. Honestly, I like this trailer a lot. It's so cinematic, it's so cool. So I'm down to watch it. Again. They should point out that in the lore, like, Amaterasu fell/died. And somehow, like, no one's really holding him responsible so far, which is kind of funny. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. She dead. We just bothered about Cthulhu. Now I wonder how, considering she's a mage, I wonder how Tiamat will really do against Cthulhu. That could actually be slightly misleading, considering most mages don't exactly burst Cthulhu. Given that she has that undoing ability, maybe she can undo his ultimate. Just put him back into normal when he ults. Probably be OP. I actually realized they're kind of showing both of her personality parts in the trailer as well. They're talking calmly, but then screaming like a beast. Pretty interesting.
King Gilgamesh, you seek immortality, but you found only death.
I want to see the size. I want to see the size.
Man, that cinematic gets me every single time. I just want to take a quick second to shout out our amazing partners over at Glow for all the awesome cinematic work that they've been doing with us over the past season. But it's time to talk about Tiamat. We switched out Pawn for Clumsy. Pawn's still going to be with us in spirit, driving and showing off the new goddess here. But we've got Tiamat, goddess of the Salt Sea, first god of Season 8. We put out the Closer Look blog yesterday, but kind of recap. Talk to me about Tiamat. Who is she, and who is she in Smite?
Go ahead, Clumsy.
I was going to say, so Tiamat is the primordial goddess of the Salt Sea, who mated with Abzu, the god of freshwater. She's the symbol of chaos and primordial creation. In the Babylonian epic of creation, Tiamat gave birth to the first generation of deities. Her husband, Abzu, assumes that they're going to actually go ahead and kill him and usurp his throne, and later makes war upon them, and is actually killed himself. Enraged, she too makes war upon her children, her husband's murderers, taking on the form of massive sea serpents. Who is then later on actually slain in the stories by Enki's son, the Stormguard Marduk.
It's a battle of the gods in Tiamat's and original mythology, and now she's coming to the battle of the gods in modern mythology.
Yep.
Yeah. I know. So
Modern
talk to me
mythology,
just a little bit
SMITE.
about kind of her theming and her kind of our key pillars for Tiamat and SMITE, AJ.
So Tiamat is a primordial goddess, which we have a few of. They're always very interesting. They have really, really broad and powerful abilities. Tiamat is about creation, and she's about creation, order out of chaos. There only was chaos before until Tiamat and Abzu started kind of giving things life and giving things a form. Unfortunately, those first gods, they chose to rebel against her and fight back against their parents. Right. So Tiamat created even more creatures to fight back with, and we're going to be leaning into the kit. Her visual and personality themes are really about kind of finding the subtle sweet spot in between a monstrous creature and a wise goddess. So she is her visuals are drawn from a lot of different animals, all kind of combined together. We wanted her to have a sort of a base form of a dragon or serpent, as she is described in her ancient mythology, but we wanted to give her a lot of unique looks. So she's got feathers, she's got fur, she's got different types of carapace, she's got a jellyfish sort of
the
fins.
Tail is one of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, all sorts of things. And her personality is also conflicted in that regard. She's very calm and collected and neutral, but she's kind of saved the SMITE world for now, right? But she's also very straightforward and powerful and demands respect, which different gods are going to take in very different ways, and we're going to be exploring that throughout the year.
All right. Well, we've got a chance to look at the card, and this turnaround, like, her model looks absolutely gorgeous, but I'm about ready to see Tiamat in game. Right. So, as is tradition for the update show, I will give the reins to Pawn and let him go wild, and then we'll talk about everything.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's the leap into melee form. 3 melee attacks. Oh.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
And the game froze.
That was so much. Oh my gosh, there was so much going on. Oh, that was sick. He probably
those animations look so fluid.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the color and tone details. I mean, the whole team really did an insane job. I mean, she's got, I think, the most abilities in the game, actually.
Yeah, and, I was going to say, Clumsy, it wouldn't be an update show with you if we didn't have a new reigning supreme god for the most abilities in SMITE.
I mean, she's the primordial queen and the mother of monsters, the first of the Babylonian pantheon. We really wanted to do justice on, who Tiamat is with so many different themes. I think the team did a fantastic job.
Yeah, and we'll be back in game in just a second, chat, going through, setting things up. Just again, Tiamat was just too strong. She's too powerful.
We had that conquest match running for like an hour plus or 2 hours, so that's why we had to restart. But nothing with Tiamat's kit, although we expect you all to find some stuff on PTS as well. Clumsy, you could give just kind of a brief overview of the kit if you'd like as a start. The core goals, core themes.
Like we talked about in the closer look blog, which I hope all of you guys got to see, is that Tiamat has a lot of different themes going on, right? She's the mother of monsters. She's this primordial queen, the goddess of the salt sea and primordial creation. And we wanted to really, and she's the first of the Babylonian pantheon, right? We wanted to take all these different themes and come together to create a creature in our game that was really unlike anything that you've seen before. So amongst that, we wanted to make her a stand switcher, which in a way is also very different with how she switches between 2 different archetypes of mages. And you're going to see that come into play with her passive, which we can get into in just a second, I think.
Yeah, so we're gonna do things just a little bit different here. We're not gonna go like in order of like actual abilities. We're gonna start off with the stance switch first, and then talk about everything else. So first up, we've got Grounding Dive, which is her ability 3 in Flying Stance. Talk to me about Grounding Dive, Clumsy.
Yep, so Grounding Dive is a movement ability and a mechanism to go in switching between stances. So Tiamat goes between Flying Stance and Ground Stance. Grounding Dive, all it really does is actually transition to her with a leap, dealing damage when she hits the ground, and bringing her to her ground stance. It also provides Tiamat 1 Hardened Scale, which is a part of her passive, which I'll get into in just a second. But the opposite of Grounding Dive, which you can now use as the third ability in this stance, is Rising Flights.
Yes.
Suffer thee no more.
So Rising Flight is also pretty simple. It's a blast of energy that deals damage to energies, and it sends herself backwards, returning her to her flying stance.
That's a ton of ability.
Using Grounding Dive and Rising Flight is the only way to switch between these two different stances.
Yeah, super unique. So her stance switch is tied to her ability 3, which is her movement ability. She can either leap in and go to grounded stance, or leap back and go to flying stance. So let's talk about
turn your camera.
Really unique dynamics though with the ability of having to use your movement ability to also change stances, because a lot of times you're using your movement abilities as a very reactive state, and then all of a sudden you've got to fight with like a different kit. It creates a really different feel for this character compared to all the other stance switchers. And also just take a look at how tall she is, towering over that Odin while she's in her flying stance.
I know. I think we talked about it in the closer look. So she's taller than all the other gods, but not quite as tall as Jorman Gunder or Cthulhu. She's kind of in the middle ground there.
And her camera height is higher as well to match that.
Yep. The other thing to note in the two different stances is in the flying stance she is ranged at magic attacks, but in the ground stance she's actually doing melee attacks.
All right. Well, we've got the stance switch down. Let's talk about the passive. Death Gets Life.
So Tiamat's passive does a different thing in each of the stances, right? That's kind of the gimmick here. So in the flying stance, Tiamat gains health from nearby ally and enemy deaths. So that's any deaths around her, but a little bit less from minions. In her ground stance, she gains up to 5 hardened scales, and that's kind of the mechanism that allows her to be tanky in that stance. So gaining a hardened scale is actually damage mitigation that breaks after a certain amount of damage is taken. It also counts for nearby ally and enemy death, but not including minions this time. So mostly gods and like jungle monsters, large jungle monsters.
What does it mean? Do you have to restack this?
So let's talk about the flying stance abilities here. And we'll start off with Primordial Onslaught, her ability 1 in flying stance. What's going on with this one, Clumsy?
Yeah, Primordial Onslaught, Pod, if you don't mind me being an annoying one, can you set level just so you have the ranks 1 and 2? And then we'll go on from there, because Primordial Onslaught, well, Tiamat gains power, allowing her to fire orbs of energy at the end of the channel. Each orb stops on gods, but damages minions and enemies on the way through, going through walls. And as you can see, as she charges up, she gains from 1 to 2 projectiles. At ranks 3 and 5, that actually increases. So at rank 3, she goes from 1, 2 to 4 projectiles. And then finally at rank 5, she'll gain all of 6 projectiles if you continue through the entire channel.
Wow, feels like you'd have to max that.
And you can see her like beautiful cuneiform glyphs like around her back kind of filling in as she channels. I think we did a lot of work actually to get that feeling right.
Yes, this one looks great.
Oh,
I'm gonna ask Pon to
it looks nice, and it's a good indicator.
Up and kind of do a sweep as you fire, so we can see how the projectiles kind of interact with this one, because it's kind of unique.
Oh yeah, you can definitely change your mind mid-fire and switch targets.
Yeah, if you hit the same god with multiple ones, you are going to be doing less damage per successful shot.
Not by much. Okay, the numbers.
This is still her primary ranged poke. This is going to do a lot of damage. If you walk into this and take all 6 shots in the late game, you're going to feel it, right? It's going to feel like a Scylla Crush.
Oh yeah.
And one thing that's important as well is that because the amount of projectiles increases as you rank up that ability, her early game, even though she's a stance switcher, isn't actually the strongest. But we can get into that a little bit later as we talk about her kit. And now we can get to the second ability.
All right, yeah, let's talk about Ruination.
So Ruination, Tiamat creates an energy field. That's going to be what we call a double-rounded triangle, where it deals low damage to enemies in the entire area, and then a larger amount in the inner area after another time to deploy. The inner area will then also stun enemies that are inside of it. So low damage, and then high damage and a stun for enemies inside the center.
Oh, it's quick though. Be interesting how hard that is to confirm. It's a moving
I
target.
love the effects on this one, and of course, I called it out a little bit, but new shape, I'm sure people are hype about that.
Always. And both of these abilities are really exploring the sort of like primordial creation magic that Tiamat wields. It's not just like something that would burn you or destroy you. It's like, imagine that Tiamat just undoes things that she wants to destroy, right? It's really cool.
Control
type of
Z.
unique take. Yeah, right.
All right, so we're talking about kind of her undoing things, but let's talk about her creating things. It's time to talk about the ultimate.
That was fantastic.
Children of
well done
creation.
there,
I appreciate it. I've been practicing, you know.
People were wondering how is Tiamat going to be summoning all these different creatures, and how does she have
Oh
all
my
these
God.
abilities? Well, that's in the fourth. Her ultimate.
Another
stance.
stance.
If you can see right here, she's actually going to be toggling in to another stance, really, another posture, where she can now use 3 completely different abilities in this stance. They
What's
all
it with the
will share a
mages and
cooldown.
3
The
stances?
first one here is Summon Serpents, where Tiamat will place a Pit of Creation, which spawns Serpents of Tiamat that travel down the minion lanes, just like minions, just like lane minions. They attack nearby enemies. If you do them in the jungle, they'll try and attack things nearby before finding a nearby lane. 2 serpents spawn every 10 seconds, and the deployable in general will create 3 waves before disappearing. Also, any enemies that are hit by the serpents will have their damage done reduced. These guys are really a new mechanism that we haven't really tried before, which is passive lane pushers.
Yes.
A little bit of other help as well is that they take 1 HP from god hits, including abilities, per unique ability, as well as 3 hits from minions. So they are a little bit tankier to minions, and like I said, they apply that damage reduction debuff as well.
I know,
To
I'm
God's
so
end.
tired. I was just the way they
You
walk.
can do some really interesting lane pushing and XP farming tricks with this ability too. And it's a very unique ultimate in that you can choose which one you want. So if it wasn't clear, this is used by pressing 2 different buttons to activate the ultimate and then pressing another one to choose the creature. Similar as kind of the way you would do Merlin's stance switch choice.
Yep. Enemies also can actually stand on that Pit of Creation deployable, the circle where they spawn from, to actually destroy it early as well. That's if they can find it, if they can get to it. But in general, these minions will, if you actually see, don't have a lifetime. They will keep traveling until they're killed eventually by towers or the Titan.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, so these serpents are persistent. They will push until they die.
Yeah.
And yeah, that circle will only last 3 waves of these minions, and you can only have 1 of the pits out at a time. But from there, I think we can go into the second of Tiamat's flying ultimate abilities, Summon Beast, where Tiamat creates a different one of her children, Kusariku, one of the ones in the stories, who stands guard at a target location. A little bit different to the primary purpose, Kusariku or Summon Beast, if an enemy god gets too close, he will charge them and slow them and then attack them. He will wait guard to protect Tiamat and protect locations. So you can see he's just waiting there, but if there's a god nearby, he will immediately start attacking them and slowing them extremely heavily for 80%, but only for 1 second.
All of these children we're spawning here from Tiamat are also based specifically on ancient Babylonian texts, and they have their ancient Babylonian names, which Clumsy is doing a pretty good job of pronouncing.
Yeah, I know.
I hope I'm doing okay there.
Yeah.
So yeah, he serves a completely different purpose, and we can get to him in a little bit more detail, and with his purpose. But I think we can go on to the third one of Tiamat's children, which is a little bit less of the normal kind of monster challenges you'd see, but it is Umudabrutu, the Violent Storm. And Umudabrutu, or Summoning Storm, when Tiamat creates this deployable, it actually follows enemies before knocking them upwards and dissipating. So, Umudabrutu, the Violent Storm, is
just an
actually
ability.
still one of Tiamat's children.
That's just an extra ability. That's not a pet.
If you guys caught on social media, we love our distracted boyfriend meme here at Hi-Rez, and this is one that we were thinking about here. So it's kind of like Cuckoo Tornado, but not really. But it follows around. But again,
the 3 other spoiler tweets were actually the references to her 3 children that she can spawn.
Yep.
So those were in the kind
like
of more ancient runic style. Those were meant to hint to these, which was a really cool concept.
Yep, exactly. And then, like I mentioned a few times earlier, and I can get to again later, each one of Tiamat's ultimate children really provide a different purpose to her gameplay. Remember I said they all share a cooldown, so you can only use 1 at a time. So if you want to use those Basilisks to spawn and push down the lane, that's fine, but that means you won't have your Minotaur, your Bulwark there, who might help root down a single target if you're being ganked, which also means you might not have Umu Debrutu there for when team fights break out, and you might want that AoE.
Oh wow, that's a long cooldown for the small lizard at least.
Well, that wraps it up.
Serpents.
We've gone through everything in flying stance, so
Yeah,
let's
one more stance to
transition
go.
and let's transition and switch things up and talk about grounded stance. And the first ability, probably the biggest talking point on social media after the closer look, is consume. Let's talk about consume, Clumsy. What's going on with this one?
So I love introducing this one to people because I just go, it's a simple cone, right? You consume, you just look at it, it's a simple cone, it deals damage and it slows enemies. But wait, there's more. We really wanted to try something different here. Consume in the grounded stance. Tiamat can actually use this in minions, on large monsters, and buff holders, as we're about to see, to execute them underneath the health thresholds. So you can see
so
the
that's how
little
she jungles.
FX mark we have on those enemies. It'll instantly kill those enemies. Now, as you might have seen with this kind of mechanic before, if Tiamat actually does this to a buff holder, well, things get a little bit interesting. And I think I love seeing all the different ideas that people had when we said she duplicates buffs, but there's actually a little bit more to it as well. So Tiamat is able to consume and immediately gain one of these buffs, as we're about to see. Bang. She dropped a red buff in the world, and she gained a red buff as well. But there's a little bit more to it too. If Tiamat kills another jungle buff holder without using, well, not necessarily without using consume, if she already has consume, a consumed buff, so go ahead and kill that. She can then actually walk over and pick up a second buff. So not only does she
I wish I could see
buffs,
chat right now.
Yeah, I know. It's
Wait, what?
You're gonna be like, wait a second. What? So she actually is able, she's the first god who will be able to utilize 2 different buffs. They all have the maximum duration, and I know people are gonna be thinking, this is just insane, but there's a lot of different things we did to make sure that this feels balanced. In fact, we actually started out with the consumed buff having like 20% of the duration, or 30 or 50%, but we noticed that trying to force this kind of gameplay, and even if you're playing her in the jungle, it's not the easiest to make
You
use
start
of.
on solo
Now, with
then.
other game modes like Arena or Joust, it might actually be a lot easier, but in Conquest, if you're playing in the mid lane or the solo lane, it may not actually be that easy to get this going, but like people said, if you want to drop a red buff,
Start on
pick that
solo
up
and
for
then get
yourself
your
let the
speed
support
after.
go ahead and grab that, well, you're feeling pretty happy.
It's generally just difficult. You can't be everywhere at once, and you don't want to disrupt all of your lanes' starting positions and their normal jungle flow just so you can get an extra jungle buff, especially not necessarily in the early game. But I'm very excited to see
I
how
think
the
you can
pros
just do
use
blue.
this and when they do coordinate.
Mess Soul up a little
they
bit.
do try a completely different start when it's a Tiamat in the game, because then we'll really see the pinnacle of this power.
Yep. And I'm definitely anticipating if a Tiamat is on your team, you're definitely wanting to prioritize the Greater Scorpion to get those enhanced jungle buffs.
Yep, Pawn's got a good point here. Another thing that you can see is that, just like in the stories, Tiamat can actually consume her actual pets. So they will immediately be executable by consume. You can see those little points. And what that does, if you remember from the passive, is that she can actually gain hardened scales, which is what allows her to have the extra mitigations when her pets die around her.
Oh.
So if she summons minions in the flying stance, her pets, and then goes into the ground stance and immediately consumes them, she will be even tankier. She gets 5 stacks of hardened scales. I know, it sounds like a lot, guys, but believe me, it'll all come together.
So much. All right, well, that was Consume. Let's talk about Outburst, going to be the second ability in grounded stance.
Outburst, a lot more simple. Tiamat slams the ground, creating seismic rifts that erupt in succession in front of her, damaging and knocking up enemies.
Easy
That's
enough.
all it does, I promise.
That's it. Yeah, I was waiting. I was like, wait, is there more?
Rolling damage and CC.
Yeah.
All
We've
right,
already
and
talked
then-
about the third ability, which allows her to switch stances, but then she's finally got her ultimate in ground stances.
Yes. Tempest of Undoing, her ultimate in grounded stance. What does this one do?
So Tempest of Undoing, it causes an outburst around her, dealing damage in that circle around her that you see, and also a small dot effect to any enemies that are hit by this, gods and minions. Now, the other thing to note, just one small other caveat, is that when Tiamat uses and hits enemy gods, she also gains 1 hardened scale per enemy god hit. This ability is her main way of generating hardened scales outside of just stance switching. So we assume that you're not going to be using her pets and consuming them or people dying nearby. So you use this right after you've dived in on as many gods as you can to gain stacks of mitigation.
Her melee form hinges so heavily on the passive.
Tiamat is super interesting,
which is hard to use.
That we just haven't done before.
Depends
with
on
lots of unique gameplay ideas and mechanics. How do you guys kind of envision playstyle recommendations, and where do you see her kind of fitting in the meta and in Conquest?
So, I mean, she's definitely most likely going to be a mage that you see in the middle lane. But I think she can definitely flex in between the solo lane with a tankier playstyle, or maybe even in the jungle if people really want to try and get maximum utilization out of Consume. As I mentioned earlier, she doesn't actually have the strongest early game because she only has a small bit of clear with those 2 shots of her Primordial Onslaught. So unlike most stands, which is like Merlin or even Artio, for example, her early game is going to be harder to get make use by. Conduit Gem has helped a lot in the new season, but still, even with that, it's a bit rough.
Yeah, that's a great point. She is different from other stance switchers in the fact that if you want stance switch at level 1, you have to invest in your 3, which may not be the best ability for you to take. So definitely interesting. Right. That's a great point, Clumsy.
The other thing to note is I know you guys have seen this, a lot going on. We wanted to make sure that Tiamat really did justice to all of these different themes. I think it's going to make a lot more sense when you get your hands on her. And another thing to note is that while it seems like she has a lot that she can do, it's all actually coming out over a longer period of time, right? Even if you're using the entirety of her kit, you're using Summon Beast to slow down an enemy into Ruination, into Primordial Onslaught, diving into enemies, and then using her entire combo there. That's still not maybe as much burst as just using your 3-1 ulti combo as Emo. It's coming over a longer period of time, and it forces you to jump into the fight.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for going through everything, Clumsy.
I really don't know.
You put in a ton of work on Tiamat here.
How she'll be strength-wise.
I'm super excited for players to get their hands on the goddess of the Salt Sea. But before we break, we do have, some recolors and mastery skins that we want to show off. The first one, your standard recolor, is Azure Sea Tiamat. And we tweeted this art, and everybody immediately was like, who did this? This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
I know AJ, yeah.
This was my favorite of all of her cards. I mean, they're all really cool, but personally, this one speaks to me.
Yeah.
It's just something about her rising from the depths, and you see the wreckage and stuff around. And
I really wonder.
I love that we kept kind of the pinks, but
seems really
instead of like the cyans, we go into like a deep
hard to learn.
Here, this one's great. And we've got some.
And her skills don't
voice
do
lines
that
we
much
wanna show off
individually.
as well. So let's listen to the first voice line we have for.
So I really
Tiamat
wonder how
while we
strong
look
she's
at this
gonna be.
recolor.
Oh.
Is flawed and full of corruption. I have arrived to cleanse the land and reshape it in my own image.
Interesting accent.
Oh, I love this. And then I got to give a shout out while we're listening to the voice pack to the audio team, specifically Chad. I know he took in a lot of work kind of thinking about the weight on both of all the audio effects as we transition stances and stuff like that. For Tiamat. It's super awesome. But we've got the next recolor as a part of your Season Pass 2021, your first Ascended skin of the year. It's going to be Tiamat, and I love kind of like the greenish yellows here. What do you think?
I mean, we had the different purples, and we've got these awesome greens. I love this kind of hue on this like crazy monstrous creature.
This is a very
unique
color,
actually worth.
Choice, and I really like it. And I think it really appeals to the people who are looking for the more reptilian feel from her.
That's a good point.
Which is what I think comes through with this, which is really cool.
All right, let's take a listen to another voice line for Tiamat.
I see insects competing for supremacy, playing God. Let me show you where the God really is.
I feel like a trailer voice is different than here.
All these voice lines just are super, super great. Let's transition into mastery skins for Tiamat. Will be available day 1 when she launches. So if you're grinding, getting those worshippers up, you will be able to unlock the gold, legendary, and diamond skins.
Damn.
Here's the card for the masteries.
The
this
card
one
art still
looks so great.
Beautiful too.
I know. I love how she's just kind of grasping that energy and is just ready to onslaught someone and just like undo their entire existence.
Taking that time here.
We go in game here, see the turnaround. And I believe we have one more voice line for Tiamat. Let's take a listen as we transition to the legendary.
Not a bad one. Not the greatest.
You dare test your might against Tiamat?
No, we don't want to test our might against Tiamat.
I know, right? Yeah, definitely do not. So there we go. And I believe we'll be transitioning to the legendary and diamond skins here in just a bit. Yep, there we go. There's legendary.
That looks cool.
Really
that looks very dragon-esque.
Yeah, they do.
I always love this theme, especially on the creature characters. This looks so badass.
Yeah, I always think about, where are we gonna, do the color blocking for the creatures? Because with humans, it's in the clothing, it's kind of easier to tell, but the kind of liberties the art team takes for the mastery skins on creatures is really great. And we're going
we
for
kind
the
of just
diamond
went all
skin.
out on the mastery colors for Tiamat here.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep, there's the
sweet.
diamond. There we go.
That's clean. Yeah, I want that.
Definitely
Who's gonna be getting
going
that
to
day
be.
1, day 2?
Oh,
Week 1? What is
that's
that?
so cool.
I love the new god race.
Oh my god, it looks like the
First
Yu-Gi-Oh
diamond. I
dragon.
love getting those tweets.
I need this and I don't even think I'm going to play how much.
Well, that is a wrap for the goddess of the Salt Sea. Lots
That
going
is
on
so
with
cool.
Tiamat. I'm super excited. I hope all the players are super excited. I know the entire team internally is super excited. First god of season 8. I believe
Pantheon.
PTS is new Pantheon. There's so much going on. It's awesome. New conquest map. But I believe PTS is targeted for Friday, so be sure to keep an eye out on
Good.
all the official Smite Game social media channels. We will be sure to let you know when you'll be able to log in on PTS and test out the newest Mage coming to Smite. But that's a wrap here for us. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. We will catch you all on the next one.
Thank you.
Whoop. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching. I will not do the patch notes review today. I will do that tomorrow. So yeah, I'm going to split that up a little bit because I am really tired right now. And yeah, I think these patch notes are pretty good overall. This patch is pretty good overall. We're seeing a lot of changes. That was somewhat necessary, I would say. A lot of balance adjustments. Not everything that I would have thought we would see, but I'm sure they're looking more into some things. And interesting, I'm running an ad now. But yeah. I'm sure they're looking more into some things, and then we'll find out more as well. So that should be fine. That'll all figure itself out over time. For now, I'm pretty happy that the most pressing issues, I would say, have been addressed, and I'm very much looking forward to Tiamat. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you for the next one soon. If you're new to the channel, please sub button and ring the bell. Yeah, that's it. Zixloth out.